Is it permissible for a Buddhist monk to consume meat or animal products, animal flesh? And the answer to that is a little bit complicated and not as straightforward. And it is both a yes and a no. And it also depends on which lineage the monk belongs to, which Buddhist tradition the monk belongs to, and it is also relevant to the historical context of the question. So let me explain. The straight answer is yes, but only if the meat, if the flesh of the animal was not intended for the monk to consume. Meaning, if the monk knew that this meat was slain, the flesh of a sheep or a cow or a chicken was sacrificed so that the monk can eat, then the monk can't consume it. Because there is the intention of the monk to consume the animal, there is a knowing, a knowledge that this animal's life was slain, was foregone, so that the monk could be nourished, the monk could eat from it. And because the monk knows that that was the intention, the monk can eat it. Meaning, if let's say I invite a monk over to my house and I say, this chicken, let's say I have like a chicken in my backyard and I know the monk is coming and, I really want to do it up for the monk. Okay. And I take the chicken and I slaughter the chicken, make some roast chicken, and the monk comes in. And then the monk, I say, we're talking, and of course, him being a monk, he's very conscious, so he's going to ask questions. He's going to say, where is this chicken coming from? And I'd say, oh yeah, that's a chicken that I raised, and we slaughtered it yesterday, and yeah, I knew you were coming, so I really wanted to give you some good food. Monk can't eat it because now and from what I understand anyway, the monk's karma now is bound up with that animal. Okay. However, if the food was not intended for that specific monk, for that specific practitioner of Buddhism, a monk or otherwise, even a lay person who practices Buddhism, if it was not intended, so if you go to a place and they're serving food, like say it's lunchtime, they're serving food. You go to an event, for example, and they're serving food, and there happened to be only chicken there. That's what they're serving for today. They're serving chicken. The chicken was not per se intended for you personally. It was slain, it was slaughtered, and it's there. Now, if you eat it, you're permitted to eat it. It wasn't specifically for you. You didn't have prior knowledge. And so your own personal karma is not as bound. I mean, there's still bondage there, but not as bound to the animal, to the life of the animal, as it was if it was intended for you, to be consumed for you personally. Okay? And so in this particular case, the person who slain the animal, so when I invite the monk over, the monk isn't supposed to eat it because this was intended for him. And I'm taking on the karma here because I slain the animal. And I basically have infringed the right of another sentient being to go on living and go on having this experience until it comes to a natural halt, however that natural halt is. But because I used my intention, my conscious free will to end the life of this animal for my own consumption, for the consumption of somebody else, then I take on most of the burden of the karma. But if the monk knew that this was slain for him, and if the monk eats it, then he's also taking on some of that karma as well. As far as I understand it anyway. Okay? Now you've got to understand something. In Buddhist tradition, the way Buddhists ate is they begged. They were beggars. The Buddha was a beggar, and his disciples were beggars, and that's how they ate. They depended on lay people to give them food for sustenance because they rejected all aspects of household life. They were dropouts. They dropped out of society. Buddhist monks are dropouts. They drop out of society. So they dropped out of society way back when at the inception of Buddhism, conception of Buddhism, right? They dropped out of society. And so they depended on the lay people to give them sustenance. So I guess a better example would be if the lay people gave you meat to eat, then they give you meat to eat. That's what's available. Because that's sort of how Buddhists go on, traditionally anyway. Now, again, it's still the same in many parts of the world, but it really depends. Okay, it really depends where you go, but they still, I mean, all Buddhist monasteries, practically, they depend on donations. It's still the same concept, okay? And they depend on lay people, regular people, to give them sustenance so that they could go on and, dedicate themselves to monastic life. So, now, if lay people give you meat, that's what they give you. In other words, that's the flow of the Tao, the flow of the way of things. This is what's available. Buddhism has a great emphasis on accepting what is. So in that particular case, you could eat the meat, technically, and you would still have karmic bond. I'll try to explain to you what your karmic bondage in that specific scenario would be. But most of the karma would lay on the person who killed the animal. Okay, meaning you've ended the life of another sentient beings intentionally and consciously. Probably you're going to have to come back as an animal form, and then somebody's going to snatch your life because that's what you've done. That's most of the karmic burden goes on you. But in that case, there's still a little bit of karma for you as a Buddhist, as a monk who took this meat and ate it. And that karma simply is like sort of instantaneous. Because look, when you kill an animal, in the last few moments of the animal's death, adrenaline is secreted, which is the stress hormone. There is no sentient life form, as far as I'm concerned, that wants to be killed. Okay, so what happens is you're going to be stressed. You're going to secrete adrenaline. That's going to stay in the flesh. And that's going to go in there and cause you something. Now, the karma could be as simple, the karmic bond to eating this animal could be as simple as a bad dream. You're having a bad dream. That's karma running off. A bad dream where you're being chased by something or somebody's trying to kill you. And you just had a bad night's sleep. And that could be the karma for eating the bad animal. I'm giving you an example here. Okay? You didn't kill the animal per se. In that case, even though somebody else gave it to you, you begged for food. That's how you get sustained by food, and you got the food. Yeah, that you're not gonna necessarily have to incarnate as another animal and have your life snatched away. That's the karmic bond of that particular sentient being that took the life of another sentient being. But still, there is the stress hormones in that animal. You're going to take on that memory, that energy, and it's going to affect you in one way or shape or form. Maybe a really bad bowel movement. Okay, because you ate this food. It could manifest itself, it could play itself out in many ways. However, if you either kill the animal, I mean, in Buddhism, you cannot kill an animal. You cannot kill an animal and eat it. That's just that. That's a no-no. Because you take on direct karma. You have to understand the traditions like Buddhism and Hinduism, they believe in reincarnation and karma, and that's the building blocks of the religions. The goal of it is to reach nirvana, mukti, liberation from the cycle of death and rebirth. These are literally the building blocks of these traditions, of these religions, of these philosophies, of these sanatana dharma, the way it is. I mean, it is the way it is. It is what it is. That's the way it is, folks. That's what it is. It isn't even a belief system. It just is the way it is. Okay? So they look at everything in terms of energy and karma. So you cannot, as a Buddhist monk, you cannot kill an animal for any reason, let alone for eating it. You're taking on much karma here. Much karma. So then the argument here, or the exception, or the case would be, is it's not a total no. There are certain situations where you could, if the animal was not intended for you. And again, this has to do with historical context, because Buddhism depended in some of its stages of development in certain parts of the world on lay people who were shepherds, who raised animals, raised chickens, and ate meat and sold meat. And so they, because they couldn't just say, Buddhists couldn't just say, no, you can't eat meat or kill animals. Otherwise, I mean, they were sustained on by these slave people. And they were basically, if you told everyone, "Oh, don't eat meat because, or you shouldn't kill meat, shouldn't kill animals," you would have put a big hole in the business of those simple shepherds and people who were raising animals and having businesses around them. They couldn't really do that for practical reasons. Okay? So then there were these exceptions and loopholes, if you will. Especially when you started off the tradition as beggars, and that was Buddhism in its early conception. Beggars still is. You can go to, I mean, I haven't been to Thailand yet, but I've heard that you can go to Buddhist monasteries and they do in the morning, they go with their begging bowls and they collect foods. It's a Buddhist tradition. So, however, all of that being said, I go meditate in a Buddhist monastery. They're Theravada, Sri Lankan, so old school, okay? And I asked the monk, I said, do you eat meat? He said, absolutely not. I don't. And I said, why? And he explained it to me in terms of karma. You take on the karma and you also take on the energy. And he explained it to me. I said, okay, if you were starving and there was nothing to eat but an animal, and you were stuck somewhere and you're starving, and all you could do now is slay an animal or go and hunt, and otherwise you'd die, would you kill the animal just to survive? He said no. He said he would die. He said he would die starving. So it's a big no-no to kill an animal and eat it in Buddhism. It's a huge no-no. And the monk went as far as saying, I would die of starving. And a truly trained Buddhist monk would probably do that. They really don't give a shit too much about surviving. Okay, they're sort of not attached. If I'm alive, I'm alive. If I'm dead, I'm dead, kind of thing. Okay, he probably meant exactly the words that he said, that he would die starving than kill an animal. So yeah, there are those cases where you're permitted in Buddhism to eat animals, so as long as the animal is not intended for your personal use, or if it is the only thing available, as long as you didn't slay it. Okay, as long as you didn't slay it. So meaning, even if it's still available, if it's the only thing available, but you have to slay it yourself, no, you're taking on karma. And that's a heavy karma too, because you're probably going to have to reincarnate in that particular life form, and you're going to have your life snapped away by some other life form because you've done it to another sentient being. The other reason, we talked about Buddhist cosmology. We made the video 31 Planes of Existence. Animals are in the lower realm, but they are also on the journey to higher awareness, to higher consciousness. And by interfering and taking their life intentionally and deliberately, you're infringing on their right as a consciousness to do something with their animal incarnations. You're infringing on that basic right for every sentient being. So hence the big no-no for Buddhists to kill an animal for sustenance. And again, the only exception is if it is the only thing available and you did not slay it yourself and it was not intended for you. And even then, it is frowned upon because you still take on some of the karmic bondage, the samskaras, the impressions in that animal who was killed because, in the last few moments of it being killed, it released the stress hormones. So you're going to have to take on that. Physically and mentally, it could manifest in many ways, right? So yeah, I thought I'd share it with you guys. I was just very interested because when I took a course on Buddhism, one of the first questions that people asked in the class, people were very interested in this. What is the situation of eating meat in Buddhism? So most Buddhist monks, they eat vegetarian, plant-based vegetarian. if you go to a Buddhist monastery, they're not going to go out of their way and eat meat. That's just not going to happen. And probably in any Buddhist monastery, 95 to 100% of all the foods that are served are going to be vegetarian. And again, they don't do it for health reasons. They do it for karmic reasons. Okay, keep that in mind. One of the things that changed my mind or swayed me into not eating animals anymore isn't the health, isn't any of that. It's the karma. Karma is the way it is, folks. You want to ignore it? You can't. What are you gonna do? It's like the internet. You could ignore that the internet is not there. Whether you see it, we don't even see the internet, but it's there. We know it's there. You don't see karma, and you could say karma is not real, it doesn't exist, that's not the way it works. But it doesn't care whether you think it exists or not, or it works or not. It's the way the simulation works. It's the way the illusion works. It works through action. Every action has a reaction. It works through karma, action, law of cause and effect. And everything that we do, like Marcus Aurelius says, what we do in life echoes in eternity. Okay? So it's going to echo into eternity. Eating meat is not good or bad. Even Buddhists, it's funny because I was with a friend of mine, and after the meditation session, we talked to the monk. And my friend, at the time, I was still eating fish. My friend was vegan, okay? And my friend, he had this pride of being a vegan. Now the monks, they only eat vegetarian. They only eat, plants, probably vegan also, right? Maybe some dairy and whatnot. I haven't asked them. But although the monk and my friend, they eat the same thing. And at the time, I was still eating fish. And eggs also. So my friend, you could tell he was very proud. When we were talking about this, he said, I only eat vegan. And the monk stopped him and he's like, be careful about the pride, be careful about the vegan ego. Because you could see it in my friend right away. Buddhists don't think there's anything good or bad, okay? Because there isn't. There really fundamentally isn't anything good or bad. There just is things happening. Karma is not good or bad. It's not good or bad to eat meat or not eat meat. You want to go kill an animal, by all means. That's not bad. Consciousness doesn't judge itself for any of its actions. In any of its creations, it's all of consciousness. Consciousness accepts all of its creations and all its manifestations. You can even go kill a human being. That's not bad from consciousness perspective. Consciousness does not think like humans. However, there are consequences you pay because that's just the laws. That's just the way it is. It's part of it. There are consequences you pay. So if you kill, you get killed in this life or the next. Not just you get killed, but you suffer the mental consequences, the fear and the paranoia that come from such actions. Okay? You do. It's just the way it is, folks. It's not good or bad. Never ever tell somebody it's bad to do this. Because it isn't. It is not bad. Okay? Meat eaters are not bad people. They're just people who are participating in the dance of creation, the dance of form. And guess what? Most of us, we've ate meat at some point. You can't judge. I've only recently stopped eating meat. Very recently, actually. It's been only months. Been only a few months. Okay? Now, nobody's bad. Look, stop playing God. Stop playing God. God already is playing itself through all these laws in the universe. Stop playing God, trying to reward people and punish people for their actions. No. Karma does all of that. Okay, if you kill, you participate in that, there are certain karmic consequences that you reap. Not from a place of good or bad, but from a place of nature has this rule. This is the backyard. You guys can play in the backyard. Here are the rules. Do you want to play by these rules? Fine. You don't want to play by these rules? Also fine by me. But there are certain laws within, inherently programmed within the backyard that will reward you or punish you based on your actions of play within the backyard being creation, nature being God. Okay, stop playing God and let karma do its thing. Let God, it's just there's only a process playing itself. Okay, instead of playing God, just be happy with yourself and be happy with the moment and be happy, accept what is and be happy with what you are and focus on you. on your own particular individual soul journey through the illusion. Okay, and let karma do its thing. Again, this desire in us to judge people and change people and pass on judgments and all of that, it comes from not seeing that things are perfect as they are. That there are perfect laws in the universe that punish and reward actions based on their sentiments, where they're coming from, etc., etc., etc. So hopefully this video was helpful. And I want to thank all the Patreons for being such amazing, wonderful, generous people. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. The Patreon fam, love you guys. And if you would like to help us out and show your appreciation and support in financial means, believe me, anything you throw my way would be helpful, especially if we're looking for the cumulative effect. I'd like to do this full time. I do not do this full time, and I would love to do this full time. If you guys do it, if you guys allow me to do that through your generous contributions, and it could be, again, as little as $2 a month. That's not really much. Okay, that's not really much. And yeah, we could do lots of cool things with the channel. We could go beyond just me doing this full time. We could host retreats and stuff. I'm going to Thailand now, so I would like to host retreats and have people come over and do all kinds of things in person, and we would need a little bit of money for that. So if the community can support itself, that would be amazing. God bless. Mwah. And until next time, may the force be with you.